Hi guys and welcome back to the channel, and today we have some devastating news in regards to Star Trek 4. So this comes from Collider, which I think they got it from Variety. I think Variety was the original one that broke the news. But when I typed in Star Trek 4 cancelled today with the first one to come up. So let's go from this one. So almost 10 years later, Chris Pine's Star Trek 4 gets a devastating update from Paramount. This is from Rob London at Collider. This is a few days ago though. It said published 6 days ago. Like it was. It's an old story, but it's one of the kind of things where I'm like, I didn't really want to say much. I was like, is it bullshit? Because I've spoken about Star Trek 4 in the past over my YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on TikTok, then my YouTube channel. And I was like, so when I seen this, I was like, oh, here we go again. Star Trek 4's cancelled. But then in a few weeks' time, I'll be like, nope, Star Trek 4's back up and running again. Because even the report says about it, about the amount of off on we've had from the film over the last 10 years. So Rob says, while a new Star Trek movie is still in the works from the newly merged Paramount, it looks like the crew of the last 3 big screen Trek movies have already taken their final voyage. According to reports, Paramount is no longer moving forward for Star Trek 4 that would reunite the cast of the 2009's Star Trek. And yeah, that's pretty much true. That's what I've been seeing as well. The word is that Paramount has moved on from the cast of the recent films and will instead boldly go in boldly go in a new direction with a new cast and premise. The 3 most recent Star Trek films take place in the Kelvin Timeline, an alternate universe that is not in continuity with the Star Trek TV shows or the previous 10 theatrical films. Starring Chris Pine as Captain Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, and Zoe Saldana as Uhura. The Kelvin Uhura. Fuck am I doing? The Kelvin Timeline includes 3 films: Star Trek, 2009 Star Trek, which saw the crew come together with the aid of the original Timeline Spock, Leonard Nimoy, 2013 Star Trek Into Darkness, which features a conspiracy inside Starfleet and a mysterious Khan, by Benedict Cumberbatch, which I really enjoyed. Into Darkness, I really did. I mean, I love Star Trek 09, but I really enjoyed Into Darkness. And 2016's Star Trek Beyond, which pitted the crew of the Enterprise against a power-mad monster, Idris Elba, from Starfleet's Hidden History. Star Trek Beyond is fantastic. It was fantastic. I didn't love it when I first saw it back in 2016 on the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, but it's a really fucking good film. So Rob says, what went wrong with Star Trek 4? And this is where it goes going about the whole fucking, like, all the Tom fuckery behind the scenes of the last 10 years. So it talks about the fact that it underperformed majorly at the box office, which it did. It was a shame that it did. But even then, though, Star Trek 4 was still in development straight after the release of Star Trek Beyond. So Star Trek 4 hit its first snag when Beyond underperformed at the box office, although it grossed a hefty $343.5 million at the box office, worldwide box office. That was barely enough to offset its $185 million budget, which is a shame. For a time, Quentin Tarantino was attached to write and direct a sequel, which is just fucking mind-blowing to think that Tarantino... But then again, Tarantino was linked with, like, a script for Halloween 6 back in the day. You're like, what the fuck? But yeah, Tarantino eventually left the project. Later, Madam Web's S.G. Clarkson was set to direct the film, which would have made her the first female director to direct a Star Trek film, which was intended to bring back George Kirk, Chris Hemsworth, Captain Kirk's father, who died in a flashback scene of the first film. It wasn't really a flashback scene. But okay. Yeah, I'm kind of glad that S.J. Clarkson never got to write and direct a Star Trek film, because when you look at Madame Web, you're just like, Noah Hawley, who I was looking really forward to. I was really looking forward to him, actually, because obviously he directed the Fargo. He created the Fargo TV show, and he was going to make it very kind of, it's in the Kelvin timeline, but it's not Kirk and Spock. There's going to be a whole new crew and all that kind of stuff, but there's going to be little kind of nods and winks and Easter eggs to the larger Kelvin timeline. I like that. I like that idea. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, Fargo's Noah Hawley was also attached to a Star Trek project, but it remains in limbo. Matt Shakman was eventually hired to direct Star Trek 4, but as the project kept stalling over script and casting issues, Yeah, eventually moved on to direct Fantastic Four first steps instead, leaving the project rudderless. Yeah, I remember when Matt Chapman came on. No, like everything felt more locked in. It was like this. You know, Chris Pine was like, "Yep, I'm ready to go." Everyone was ready to go, and again, like that's why I didn't want to talk about this. 'Cause I thought you're saying that, oh, here we go, Star Trek 4's cancelled, but then in a few weeks' time, nope, Star Trek 4's back up and running again. But it's looking like David Ellison who's taken over as the head of the board when Skydance purchased Paramount for $8 billion around about August September time there. He's a massive Star Trek fan, so it got fans kind of intrigued and being like, okay, cool, we're going to be all right now. But yeah, it's looking like they're wanting to move forward with a fresh new take, which I get it. I understand that though, because it's been 10 years since the Kelvin universe since we last saw the Kelvin universe on the big screen. But if you want to follow like what Universal have done, like Universal after nearly 20 years have came out of fucking nowhere and been like, we're doing a Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. There you go. And fans have been like, oh my fucking god. Now, I know that Star Trek is a very niche, fan base. Because obviously, like I said there, that Beyond, even Star Trek Beyond, didn't do as well as it should have done. It's a 50th anniversary film. To be fair though, I think they were banking on the fact that, if James Bond can pull $1 billion, and I'm sure Star Trek can. Right, Star Trek maybe can't do that, not do the numbers. Star Trek has never been a massive box office, success, either one of them. They're not Star Wars, right? Star Trek is not Star Wars. Star Trek is not James Bond. I think, if anything, if you're going to go forward, you make a reasonably cheaper Star Trek movie. If you can make a Star Trek film for just over 100 million, maybe even 150 at the max, then you're going to be alright. But yeah, I'd love to see a Star Trek 4. I really, really would love to see a Star Trek 4. I'd love to see Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto get their last, and the rest of the crew get their last, get their final frontier, their final film. But in saying that, Star Trek Beyond had a pretty solid kind of ending, and they just go back out into the space, and that's it. And they go on, live long and prosper. The downside about creating a whole new entire, that's what they go on and say there. So it says Paramount's most recently announced cinematic Star Trek project is allegedly an origin story for the United Federation of Planets, taking place at some point after the prequel series Star Trek Enterprise, but before Star Trek the original series. It will be directed by Toby Haynes of Andor and written by Seth Grahame-Smith of Now You See Me, Now You Don't. So yeah, a fourth film is no longer in production, but another prequel, another origin story is in the works. Now, there's so much in the past that you could talk about when it comes to Star Trek. There's so much in the future you could talk about. I don't know if this could work as a big screen comeback for Star Trek. I would think if you're going to reboot Star Trek for the big screen, you're probably going to want to do someone like another Kirk and Spock story. Which I know is kind of shit, because 10 years after, they're just like, let's reboot Kirk and Spock again. Let's bring in new actors to play Kirk and Spock, even though they've got a new Kirk and Spock on TV. But let's do it again anyway. I mean, are they going to try and do it in a way that it entices new fans, new audiences to be like, a new wholly original Star Trek movie that's got nothing to do with Kirk and Spock or Picard or Riker or anything like that? But would fans even be interested? I don't, or not fan. Would non-Trekkie fans be interested? I don't know. I like the idea, but then I'm like, I don't know. I'd love to see a young Picard series or movie, or obviously all intents and purposes we'll say movie. I don't know. It's interesting, because I'd love to see a Star Trek 4, like I said, but if this is the way to go, this is the way to go. I really thought, and I really hoped that David Ellison would would have done a Star Trek 4 and at least gave us like one more adventure with the Kelvin team. But it is what it is. So yeah, it's shit, but what can you do? You know. What do you guys think? Like, would you guys be interested in seeing like it says, an original story for the United Federation of Planets taking place at some point after the prequel series, which was Star Trek Enterprise, but just before Star Trek, the original series? Would you guys be interested in that? Star Trek fans, non-Star Trek fans, or do you think we deserve at least one more movie with the Kelvin crew? Very much in vein of The Mummy 4 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. Comment down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow, all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching and live long and prosper. My wedding ring's in a way. Doesn't matter. Live long and prosper.